Hello and welcome to KAUST Live. We're coming to you from the Winter Enrichment Programme. This year's theme is time. Time is one of life's most universal experiences. But how much do we really know about the physics, the cultural impact and the feeling of time? Here to speak to us about her art and how it explores the dynamic relationships between personal and cosmic time is contemporary artist and Guggenheim Fellow, Rachel Sussman. Rachel, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
So I'd just like to start by asking what the catalyst for your project, The Oldest Living Things in the World, was.
Well, I don't have a short answer to that question, but I'll try to encapsulate the excitement that I had around seeking for something that I could sink my teeth in artistically that would combine all the things that I was interested in. So I was interested in making art that speaks to people. I was also interested in philosophical thinking about issues that surrounding what it means to be a person in the world, what it means to be alive. And I'm also somebody who loves to travel and to explore new things. And so I ended up having this absolutely astounding adventure to Japan back in 2004, which led to my visit to a supposedly 7,000-year-old tree. It's not actually that old, but we'll leave that story for a little bit later. And what happened through my experience, through my personal experience of pushing myself beyond my boundaries and into unfamiliar territory, I was able to come up with this idea that combines art, science, and philosophical thinking around deep time and to start to frame our relationship with long-term thinking.
And how did you find, because that was the first, wasn't it?
That's right.
How did you find the other organisms? Did people just start contacting you saying, I've got this really old tree?
Well, I'll start by saying this project took me 10 years to complete, so it was quite an undertaking. And one of the most exciting things about it was when I first got the idea, I was sure somebody had had the idea before me, but it turned out that they hadn't. So that meant there wasn't a list of organisms that I could just look up to find everything that I wanted to photograph. So I did quite a bit of research. And even though I come at this as an artist, it was very important to me to include the real scientific data and research that was being done. So I was sort of a chicken and egg where I had to figure out what I was looking for before I could start looking for it. But as the years went on and the project got some attention, I did occasionally have scientists contact me and said, hey, why isn't our old tree in your project? I said, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'll be right over.
And you've also talked about the project as being a barometer of our future. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Certainly. Well, so all of the organisms that I've photographed are 2,000 years old and older. So they represent some of the most extreme longevity of individual lives that we have on this planet. And two, if three, a number of the things that I've photographed have already disappeared in the short time since I've finished the project. So on one hand, you have these organisms that truly stand the test of time. They have been able to thrive in conditions where other things couldn't even survive. And yet the question now is, will they survive humanity? So the ones that we have lost have been to things mostly due to negligence and other acts of just outright destruction.
So you've talked about how it's taken you all over the world, this particular project. With that one and maybe subsequent projects, what are the personal challenges that they have made you face, I suppose?
I don't think we have enough time for me to go into all the personal challenges that I've faced doing this work. And I say that with a smile because so much of what I've had to do for this project has helped me expand as a person. And so some of those things include physical challenges like learning to scuba dive, which was a fear of mine. I had a fear of deep water and I had to learn to scuba dive for this project. Other things included finding funding. It was incredibly difficult as an artist, an untested artist, going out into the world and doing something that was incredibly difficult and cost prohibitive, and also doing so between disciplines. So I'm an artist, but artists are saying, is that science? And then the scientists are saying, well, you can't apply for a science grant because I think that's art. And so many different other things in between. But having the project gave me purpose to, again, push myself outside of my comfort zone, which is something that I consider absolutely invaluable.
And how does time affect your own personal creativity? Do you always know when an idea is ready to pursue?
It's a very interesting question. Because I spent so many years working on this project and talking about time, I slowly started to see that it was affecting my own perception of time, which is, I think, just one of those wonderful benefits of being truly immersed in a subject, especially one as abstract as time. As in terms of how it relates to my creative process, it's expansive, sometimes it's contracted. I'll get an idea. Actually, one of the things that I'll be sharing in my lecture later is some work from a project called Sidewalk Kinsukuroi, which is also, by the way, has a Japanese influence. So I seem to keep coming back around there. But I had and I'll go into that in more depth later, but I got the idea for that project right as I was wrapping up Oldest Living Things, and it was at least a year and a half before I acted on creating it. So sometimes these ideas just incubate and they come out in their art forms when they're ready.
And I noticed that whether it's digital or analog, you work in photography, which is quite a fragile medium, but several of your other projects have been ephemeral or site-specific. So do you not worry about your own personal artistic legacy?
Well, that's an interesting way to frame it. Certainly, I mean, I feel that my artistic legacy is in the ideas that I'm sharing. I certainly hope that that's where it will live. And, you know, I do make photographs that are framed and on the walls in museums and people's homes, and I love to be able to share in that way. But I've also made things like sand mandalas, which are meant to be impermanent. So in a project such as that, when the mandala is complete and swept up, I actually give the sand away. So there's a way to continue the flow of the energy of the ideas out into the world. But no, I would have to say that I'm much more concerned with what's at the heart of the work than making sure that there's something on the wall in 1,000 years.
And it's hard to compete with some of the things in the oldest living things in the world book, isn't it? They're so old.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even want to try.
So what's next for you? Do you have a new project or projects on the horizon?
Yes, well, I'm working on a number of different things at once, actually. And it was an interesting moment when I had spent so many years immersed in the Oldest Living Things, and I had a moment where I was afraid I wouldn't get another idea. You know, what if you never get another idea again? And instead, I got so many ideas at once. So in the few years since that project has come out, I've been doing a number of different things. So one exhibition I just put up is at the Taipei Biennial currently, and it's called Selected History of the Space-Time Continuum. So it's a giant 100 or 125-foot timeline installation that starts before the Big Bang and goes 10 to the 101 billion years into the future. So I'm getting into bigger time and out into space. And some other projects that I mentioned as well, the Sidewalk Kinsukuroi, which I'll speak more about, the mandala, and I do have some other ideas percolating, but they're not quite ready to come out yet.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for now. But join us again at 5:30 p.m. today for Rachel's keynote, All the Time in the World. Remember to comment, like, and share on all the KAUST social channels using the hashtag WEP2019. And from everyone here at KAUST, thanks for watching.